There is no question in my mind that you failed this test.
I am telling you the truth.
So, was it an accident? Or are you a calculating monster who got pissed off because there was a breakup and you just decided she wasn't going to be with anybody else? So you were going to just kill her and dump her? She's gone. She's gone and you know it.
I don't know she...
You know she's gone. You can lie to me, but the evidence won't. You will lose the respect of your parents, your friends, everyone. But not before you destroy them, because they are going to defend you, and everything that they worked hard for will get flushed down the toilet. You are a cold, calculating, brutal, serial-killing monster that strangled the life out of her, killed her, and callously dumped her body somewhere no one will ever find it.
I swear I did not take her.
Yes, you did! And you know where she is, and you know what happened to her, so...
I guess I'll wait for my lawyer.
Hold on, what did you say?
Yeah, I'll wait for my lawyer.
Is that so?
Yes, I want you to find her. I don't know where she is, but I want you to find her.
Someone knocked on the door and the police detective excused himself. The man in the chair brushed his head in desperation as he waited for the officer to come back. After a moment that felt like ages, the police detective came back with Nathan's lawyer and a young-looking man in a brown leather jacket and red sunglasses. They sat beside the defendant, and the police detective sat on the other side of the table.
Listen, Mr. Shields. I know you must defend Nathan here, but let's be clear. I am a puzzle maker, and I will figure out what he did to her.
A dissectologist.
What did you say?
A dissectologist. A person who's a puzzle enthusiast or a professional puzzler. A jigsaw puzzle solver.
The police detective was dumbfounded in silence.
If you were the one making the puzzle, or a puzzle maker, as you said, you would be a cruciverbalist. But I believe in our case that would be Nathan, if he is indeed guilty of what you are accusing him of, Mr. Fisher.
And who the hell are you?
My name is Daniel Reed, private detective. March 23rd. As I sit at my desk, the soft glow of the lamp casts long shadows across the room. I can't help but reflect on how I ended up here. A private eye, they call me. A gumshoe. A man who wades through the murky depths of human depravity for a living. How did it come to this? I recline on my chair and think back to the choices I've made, the paths I've taken. It all started with a serial killer case 2 years ago. The police were sure the wrong guy did it, the victim's fiancé. Of course, they were right to suspect him. Most murders are committed by loved ones. But in this case, something was amiss. Mr. Shields, the suspect's lawyer, was an old friend of mine from college. He was desperate and reached out to me after years without words. He said I had a keen eye for forensics from my days in med school, even though I never finished. He also reminded me that I've always exceeded in the college treasure hunts. He needed someone to do legwork he could not, and I was unemployed after leaving the army. In 3 days, I managed to prove the fiancé innocent. His car was full of trash. Soda cans, fast food wrappers, and more, but of one of the cans, as I shook it, I could hear something tumbling inside. I tore up the can and there were cigarette butts, ashes mixed with soda residue, and a piece of paper. A receipt from a gas station on the other side of town. The paper was unusable as evidence. It was wet, and the print had faded, but it was enough for me to have the date and address. In the gas station, I had all I needed. A witness and a videotape that established an alibi. In 5 more, I uncovered the real culprit. The coroner grew tired of working with dead bodies and developed a sadistic taste of working in live ones. He was doing it for years, and was in a unique position to frame poor souls for the murders he committed. He was tougher to solve. We had become friendly since he tried to insert himself into my investigation under the pretense he would help me, showing me old cases and files. To remember we shared a beer gives me shivers to this day.
Daniel reached for a pack of cigarettes on his desk, the comforting weight of the familiar brand reassuring his hand. It's become a ritual, this act of lighting up and letting the smoke fill the room. Some might call it a vice, but in this line of work, you take what comfort you can get. The detective flicked his lighter open and brought the flame to the tip of the cigarette, inhaling deeply as the nicotine rushed through his veins.
As I sit here in the dimly lit confines of my office, the smoke from my cigarette curling lazily upwards. It's moments like these that make me forget, if only for a fleeting second, the ugliness that surrounds me. But then, reality comes crashing back, like a freight train barreling down the tracks. Great breakout case, but after 2 years, all my cases since then are about the same subject: marital infidelity.
Daniel slipped the pack of cigarettes in the pocket of his jacket.
Following spouses, listening to their private moments, watching them lie to their loved ones. Every single time a new case arrives, it is the same old story: lust, betrayal, and tears.
The detective looked at the file of his last case on his desk. He provided a husband with plenty of proof of his wife's affair with his own boss. The client was having mixed feelings about confronting her, taking it to court for a divorce, or simply letting it all go and continuing his happy marriage. Well, it was out of the detective's hands now. His job was complete. With a sigh, Daniel stood up and started preparing some coffee for himself. As he took a sip, enjoying the rich flavor of the beverage, the doorbell rang. 2 people were standing outside. Daniel admitted both into his office. They were an elderly couple. He sat across from them waiting for another infidelity case. But a detail caught his attention. There was something inside their eyes. Grief. The couple told Daniel Reed about the death of their daughter, Sarah O'Connor. Their story began on a stormy night when the residents of a nearby metropolis, Dreadford, awoke to find a gruesome sight: the lifeless body of their daughter, her neck brutally punctured. Panic spread through the city like wildfire as the residents speculated about the existence of the supernatural. They pleaded with him to investigate her murder and knew all about his breakout case. The elderly couple had seen it in the newspaper 2 years ago, and they were sure he was the man for the job. The police had closed the case with no suspects. The old man put a case file over Daniel Reed's desk and with trembling hands turned it to face the detective.
I reached for the file on my desk, flipping through the pages with a sense of detachment. The details blur together, a jumble of names and dates that mean nothing to me now. It's just another job, another paycheck to keep the lights on. But as I stared at the photographs of the crime scene, something stirs inside me. A flicker of curiosity, a spark of interest that I thought had long since been extinguished. Maybe it's just the stubborn refusal to let go of the past. But for the first time in a long time, I feel alive.
He took another cigarette and studied the case. The smoke filled his lungs, bitter and acrid, but strangely comforting. As he exhaled, the tension in his shoulders began to ease, replaced by a sense of calm. Suddenly, he stubbed out the cigarette in the ashtray.
There's work to be done. The streets are calling and I can answer. That city may be a cesspool of sin and corruption, but there's no use dwelling on it. The only thing that matters now is the case sitting on my desk, waiting to be solved.
The detective told the elderly couple he would take on their case. He was going to Dreadford and uncover whoever was the one responsible for their daughter's murder. The idea of it having anything to do with the supernatural was foolish, and rationality and logic would shine light into the mystery. He was ready to face whatever darkness awaited him outside these walls. On the same day, he entered Dreadford with skepticism in his heart, but an unwavering determination in his step. The chill in the air hung heavy with secrets, and the moon cast eerie shadows that whispered of horrors long buried. He knew that to uncover the truth, he must confront the darkest corners of this enigmatic and decadent town. Daniel would need to stay in the city while his investigation was underway, so he rented a room at the One Night Stand, a gloomy motel. He sat in his room and flicked open the folder containing the coroner's report. As he scanned the details, his brow furrowed deeper with each passing line. The victim? A woman in her mid-20s, her life extinguished by a brutal act of violence. The cause of death sent a chill down Daniel Reed's spine. Her neck punctured, the wound described as nothing short of savage. He sighed, fingers tracing over the stark words on the page.
No blood in the body?
He muttered to himself, the words hanging heavy in the air. It was a detail that defied logic, a mystery wrapped in the macabre. How could someone drain a body of blood without leaving a trace? What kind of twisted mind was capable of such a deed? The body had been found 5 days ago near a foggy dockyard. The room felt suffocating as Daniel delved deeper into the report. A labyrinth of questions with no clear answers. He couldn't shake the image of the victim's lifeless form, her body a canvas of violence, her story left untold. He left the room and decided to check out a list of places that Sarah was accustomed to going to. The first was a church. When he arrived at the Church of All Sins Redeemed, Daniel noticed the front door was open. He entered the dimly lit place and glanced around at the stained glass windows and the flickering candles. He approached the priest who was arranging books at the altar.
Good evening, Father. I hope I'm not interrupting anything. My name is Daniel Reed, private detective. I'm investigating the recent murder of Sarah O'Connor. She was a parishioner here, and I was hoping you might have some insights that could help me.
Of course, Detective Reed. It is a pleasure to meet you. I am Father Michael. How can I be of service to your investigation?
Can you tell me if Sarah had any enemies or if there were any conflicts she was involved in? Maybe an ex-boyfriend?
Sarah was a beloved member of our congregation, but as far as I know, she was single. She was a kind soul, Detective. I can't imagine anyone wishing her harm. She dedicated much of her time volunteering at the shelter down the street.
I see. Was she involved in any other activities or organizations?
Not that I'm aware of, but she was quite devoted to her faith. She attended services regularly and often sought guidance from me. She did on occasion frequent a local tavern, the Coffin. Maybe there, you will find more answers.
Well, Father, thank you for your time. I may have more questions as the investigation progresses.
Of course, Detective, I'll be always here if you need anything. And please keep Sarah in your prayers as I do.
Daniel left the church and went to the local tavern Father Michael named. The Coffin was an ironic name, but the universe has a cruel sense of humor. At the tavern, the detective felt an eerie aura all over the place. The regulars were clearly distressed by something. Sarah's murder, maybe? He tried asking around about her, but he received only hushed tones and cold shoulders in response. No one wanted to have anything to do with his investigation. They were as cryptic as this twisted city. The detective made his way to the bar, the dim lighting casting long shadows across the counter. A grizzled bartender was polishing a glass with a rag when Daniel leaned against it.
Evening. Have you seen this girl before?
Daniel showed a photo of Sarah, and the man barely glanced at it.
What are you, some kind of detective?
He flashed a badge quicker than the eye could see.
She has been murdered. Sarah O'Connor. Ring a bell?
He slid a 20 over the counter.
Maybe this will jog your memory. I heard she used to come here sometimes. Thought you might know something.
The bartender's expression darkened. He put down the glass and leaned closer to Daniel.
Sarah, huh? Yeah, she was a regular, sweet girl. It's a damn shame what happened to her.
It is. Have you heard anything unusual?
Well, Detective, I don't usually put much stock in legends, but there's been some talk among the regulars. Her murder. Sounds a lot like an old story my Nana used to tell.
What kind of story?
The man leaned even closer, as if he didn't want anyone else to hear what he was about to say.
The Midnight Fiend. They say it's a creature that haunts the dark corners of the city. Comes out when the moon is high, hunting for souls to claim and take them to hell. The way Sarah was found. Neck punctured, no blood, just like the legends.
Daniel's eyes narrowed as he listened and took notes in his notebook.
The Midnight Fiend? Sounds like a ghost story to scare kids. Come on, you don't actually believe it.
The bartender shrugged and then chuckled softly as he returned to normal distance.
Like I said, Detective, it's just an old legend. I don't believe in that nonsense. Probably just some sicko playing out the story. But you know how it is. Folks around Dreadford love their tales and conspiracy theories. Don't let it distract you from the real work.
Daniel closed his notebook and thanked the man. As he left, the bartender watched him go with lines of worry streaking his face. He looked back at the bar where a dark figure was sitting at a table and went back to clean the glasses. The legend of the Midnight Fiend lingered in Daniel's mind as he stepped back into the night, determined to uncover the truth about Sarah's murder. It was already late, and the detective decided to call it a night and return to his motel room. The next day, Daniel tried asking questions at the shelter where Sarah used to volunteer. He also tried the same at her workplace, but to no avail. Asking questions about Sarah raised a lot of suspicion, and as soon as he revealed his intentions, people excused themselves and went away. Thanks to her parents, Daniel had a key to the place where she lived, so he decided to look for clues there. The apartment was tidy with no signs of violence anywhere. He took several hours to meticulously search every nook and cranny. He opened every drawer, read every hand note and examined her belongings. The hours went by, and before Daniel noticed, it was already late at night. It was only after dark that he found an aged journal hidden beneath her bed. He took the journal and started reading it.
April 5th. I can't believe I'm writing this, but tonight was the night I've been longing for. I met him again in the woods, beneath the moon. It was beautiful. He was waiting for me, as always, his eyes burning with an intensity that both frightened and thrilled me. April 12th. I've been meeting him for weeks now. There is something otherworldly about him, something that makes my heart race and my skin tingle. He talks of things I've never dreamed of, dark secrets and forbidden pleasures. Tonight, he took my hand and led me deeper into the forest than we've ever gone before. We arrived at a crypt, hidden among the ancient trees, its entrance shrouded in ivy and shadows. April 19th. The crypt is our secret place now. He told me it was built centuries ago, a resting place for those who served the old ways. Inside, it's cold and damp, but there's a strange comfort in its darkness. He spoke of eternal life, of pleasures beyond mortal understanding. I feel myself drawn to his words, to his presence, to the promise of something more. April 26th. Tonight he revealed his true nature. He is the Midnight Fiend, a creature of the night bound by no mortal laws. I saw it with my own eyes. His speed, his strength, and his fangs. The legends are real. He told me of his endless existence, of the power and ecstasy that comes with it. He offered me a choice: to join him, to become like him, and to leave behind the mundane life I know. He promised eternal life, beauty, and pleasure beyond anything I could imagine. All I had to do was submit to him, to his dark gifts. April 28th. I've decided. Tomorrow night I will go to the crypt and give myself to him. I can't resist the allure of his promises any longer. He has shown me a world beyond my wildest dreams, a world of darkness and delight. I will leave this life behind and step into the shadows with him. I know the way now, the path through the woods. I have made a map, and I hope he is pleased by my surprise visit to him with my answer. This is my final entry. By the time anyone reads this, I will be gone, lost to the night and to the ordinary world I've left behind. Do not search for me. My fate is sealed, my choice made.
Accompanying the journal, Daniel found notes and directions pointing to somewhere inside the forest. The journey also documented her pursuits into understanding what the Midnight Fiend was. Sarah was convinced that he could only survive on the blood she let him take from her. It made her weak, but it was a small price to pay to become what he was, to transcend life and death. The detective was exhausted when he finally finished reading. The sun was almost rising, ready to chase away the darkness of Dreadford. To his surprise, he started to consider the most improbable. Not only the Midnight Fiend was real, but he was a vampire, preying on innocent souls for their blood to live forever. How could Daniel even consider something like this? He was a man of rationality and logic. He didn't believe in the supernatural. Either Sarah was going mad, or he was. This goddamn city was having an effect on him. Its cryptic townsfolk, its legends, its darkness ridden with crime and degeneracy. Yet, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth, as a great detective before him once said. On the way to the motel, Daniel stopped at the library. When he got there, it had just opened for business. He felt tired and sweaty, but he knew he had to press on. Inside, he looked for the section on folklore and found The Land Beyond the Forest by Emily Gerard. And there he found:
Since every person killed by a Nosferatu becomes likewise a vampire after death, and will continue to suck the blood of other innocent persons till the spirit has been exorcised by opening the grave of the suspected person and driving a stake through the corpse.
Was he going mad? Not once in his life he ever thought he would consider such a possibility. He felt more and more detached from reality. As he walked through the streets, the faces of its denizens were ugly and evil. They laughed and talked in hushed tones around him. He felt he was reaching his wit's end, but he was determined to see this through. Was it a vampire? Was it just another serial killer playing games? It didn't matter anymore. Tonight, he would visit the crypt and put an end to it. He finally reached his motel room and collapsed into feverish dreams that tormented his mind with visions of Sarah, the city, and creatures of the night, whose existence should never be revealed to the common man. As he woke up again at night, all Daniel could think about was the contents of the journal. The pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. He passed by the church and filled a bottle with holy water under the gaze of Father Michael and followed the directions noted in the journal, leaving the urban sprawl behind. He ventured into the heart of the forest, armed with a stake and his vial of holy water, determined to confront the horror that lurked within. Daniel discovered that the woods concealed an ancient crypt, shrouded in darkness. Inside the crypt, he encountered a figure draped in shadows, a creature of the night with crimson eyes and a chilling smile. The vampire, however, was not the mysterious outsider Daniel had expected. It was none other than Father Michael, a pillar of the community.
Father Michael, you are the Midnight Fiend? How could you do this?
Ah, Mr. Reed. So good of you to join me in my humble abode. As for your question, my dear boy, it's quite simple, really. You mortals are such fascinating creatures, so easily betrayed by your base desires.
Daniel shook his head in disbelief.
But you are a priest, a man of God. How could you betray your vows, your community?
I am so much more than just a priest. I am a creature of the night, Mr. Reed, a Nosferatu. And I have walked around Dreadford for more than a century and will continue walking for many yet to come. While the people here are desperate, craving for salvation and redemption, I offered Sarah something far more tantalizing: eternal life.
Daniel felt anger. He raised his stake on one hand and the vial of holy water on the other, even though he didn't have much hope that the water would be useful. After all, the vampire was a priest.
You have been preying on innocent people, manipulating them for your own twisted desires. How many lives have you destroyed?
Sarah was a mistake. They come and go, but I remain eternal. What does it matter in the grand scheme of things?
Sarah mattered. To her parents, to me. You may think that you are above the law, but I'll see to it that you meet justice. Dreadford deserves better than to be ruled by fear and darkness.
Mr. Reed, you truly are a naive soul. But by all means, do try to stop me. It will make it all the more exhilarating.
As the final showdown between detective and vampire unfolded, Daniel's heart raced with fear and determination. But in a cruel twist of fate, Father Michael proved to be too powerful. With a lightning-fast strike, the vampire overpowered Daniel, incapacitating him.
You meddled in affairs that you cannot comprehend, Mr. Reed. Let this be a lesson for men who believe they can slay gods. They can't. Now, before you depart, let's teach you another lesson.
As Daniel lay on the cold crypt floor, he watched in horror as Father Michael disappeared into the shadows, leaving him to face a fate worse than death. The vampire had won, and Daniel's lifeblood seeped into the ancient stones, sealing his fate.
So this is how it ends. Not with a bang, but with a whimper.
As the sun began to rise on a new day in Dreadford, the townsfolk remained unaware of the battle that had unfolded in the crypt. The horrors of the past were not put to rest, and the vampire, Father Michael, lived on to continue his reign of terror, hidden among the unsuspecting faces of the town. Private Detective Daniel Reed had given his life to solve the murder mystery, but in the end, he had become a victim of the eternal shadows that loomed over Dreadford.